Okay, in this lecture we're going to talk about the access options. And if you go to your File tab, the options are found right down here. And it gives you a whole bunch of ways to customize the way that Access acts. Now before I do that, I'm going to create a copy of the database that we've been working with, just so that if I forget to change any of the options back, it won't mess it up. So I'm going to go to Save As, and we're going to do Save Database As and Access Database. Click Save As, and then it automatically adds a 1 to it, but we're going to call it Options Demo. Hit Enter or click Save. Enable Content. And now we have a new name. It's Employee Contacts Options Demo, so we can play around with it without directly affecting this specific database. Okay, so now we can go to File and click on Options. And we get this pop-up window that has access options. And down the left we have our navigation. So we have General, Current Database, Data Sheet, Object Designers, Proofing, Language, Client Settings, Customize Ribbon, Quick Access Toolbar, Add-ins, and Trust Center. I'm not going to go into depth with all of these, but I will go into some detail with most of them. So let's start with the General tab. Now the General tab is going to affect your Access program overall. So any changes that you do in the General tab will affect the way that any of your Access databases show up. But it's some pretty subtle things. The main one is your user interface options. So you can disable your live previews. This is where when you hover over something, it'll actually show you what it looks like before you even click on it. So I like that, so I just keep that checked. This one is for screen tips, and you have the choices of show feature descriptions and screen tips, don't show feature descriptions and screen tips, or don't show screen tips at all. And you'll notice mine has been set on this one. And what screen tips do is when you hover over something in your table, it just gives a little pop-up while you're hovering there to describe it more fully. So it is nice, especially when you're starting out, because it can just save you a lot of time trying to figure things out. And then this one actually shows you the shortcut keys in screen tips. So for instance, if you hover over the copy, it'll say Control-C, or if you hover over cut, it'll say Control-X, just to give you tips on what shortcuts you might use in the future to save yourself time. And then the rest of this is just defaults for how you want to do the file format and so forth, and then you can personalize it as well, change your theme, that kind of thing. Not too big of a deal in the General tab. The one that gets interesting is the Current Database. Now this one gives you quite a few options for changing the way that your current database behaves. And this is why I saved this as a demo version, so that if I forget to change something back in this screen, it won't stay in my original version. So I'll just kind of run through some of the more interesting ones. These are just, doing a title or an icon for your app. This display form, if you look at the drop down here, remember we created our form employees, our form where you can enter the employees' names in. If we click on that, then when you open your Access database, by default it will show your employees form. And this is a really great tool if you're creating databases for other people, because then it just pops up whatever you want them to do. Another good one is the document window options. So we've been working with it in a tabbed version, and that's where if we open up several tables and a query and a form, then we have tabs across the top of the window where we can move between them. But another way to do it is with overlapping windows. And I'll select that so that when we go in there I can show you what it looks like. And whenever you do these, if you don't like the way it worked out, you can always come back into your options and change it back. These down here allow you to basically restrict the access to various things within your database. So let me go ahead and deselect these. Use Windows themed controls on forms, enable layout view, and enable design changes for tables in datasheet view. These are going to restrict the user's ability to easily make changes to your database, which is cool. And I'll show you those, what they look like in a second. But let's scroll down and take a look at some other ones. Okay, our navigation pane, which is our axis objects over to the left, we can also disable that. In our ribbon and toolbar options, we can actually disallow the full menus, which is all of the tabs across the top. And I'll show you what that looks like. And you can disallow default shortcut menus as well. And then down here we just have some name autocorrect options, filter lookup options, and caching options. I'm not going to go into any of those. Let me go ahead and click OK, and we'll go back to our database and I'll show you what some of those changes that we did will look like. And you'll notice this fairly important pop-up. It says you must close and reopen the current database for the specified option to take effect. So the changes I did won't take effect unless I close this database. So I'm going to just say OK. And you'll notice nothing really looks different. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to open it up again. So there's our options demo. Now you'll see it looks quite a bit different than what we're used to seeing. The first thing that we have here is a default form that popped up. So you can see already that someone who is not familiar with creating a database will be able to pop right into this and see what they have available to them. They know how to navigate through the records, they can use our buttons to navigate, and they can do data entry, but they won't even be able to see the tables where they're entering them in. If they want to change it, then they'd have to navigate to the record using the form. Okay, so that's one cool thing, and this you can close, maximize, or minimize. And if we minimize it, you'll see it just pops down in the corner down here, and we can restore it again like that. And then you'll also notice up here that it only gives us two options. It gives us the File tab and the Home tab. It doesn't give us any of the tools. They can't create new forms or reports or anything up here, so none of those tabs are there. And then all of these are just basic formatting and kind of tools that are not going to affect the overall functionality of the database. And then one more thing you'll notice is if we hover over this and we right click, it doesn't give us the quick tools. So do you remember before we could right click on this and we could either click close or save or design view. Notice that we aren't able to get into design view with the way that things are arranged. Okay, so those are some kind of cool things. But there is more you would have to do if you wanted to make a truly secure database. Because with this setup, they could always go into the File menu, go back to your privacy options, and change any of this back. And we're actually going to do that now. So I'm going to get rid of my default display form. I'm going to put back my controls, my layout view, and my design view. I'm going to display the navigation pane again. And I'm going to put the menus back in the ribbon. Now I can click OK again, and I'm going to close this and reopen Access, go back into that, and now you can see that it's back to normal. Oh, with the exception that I didn't take it out of Windows view. So these are still in Windows. We can go change it back to tab view, but I'll show you a little bit more how the Windows view looks. You can go to a different report, and it'll bring that up as a window, and of course you can minimize this. You can minimize both of them. You can go here and look at all your windows by looking at more windows. It'll actually show you how many you have open, and you can just select on one to get to it. But we'll go back and change that as well. So we go to current database again, and that was under Document, Windows, Options, and we switch back to Tabbed, and we click OK again, and we'll have to close and reopen it. Just click Close and Open. And now when we open our forms again, you can see now it's in the tab format. So everything that we open now will be on different tabs. Okay, so in our options menu, that was our general and current database options. Next we'll get into datasheet options.